Whoop. Sorry, I dropped my phone. Everybody okay? Well, good morning. My name's Steve Payne, and I'll be the moderator for this morning's class. And welcome to the Institute of Divine Metaphysical Research. This is a school and not a church, and neither are we affiliated with any religious organization. This school is a non-profit, non-denominational religious and scientific research organization dedicated to showing proof of the existence of Yahweh, our Elohim, and the operation of his eternal purpose, pattern, and plan operating throughout eternity to this present day. This school was established as the result of a divine vision and revelation given to our founder, Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley, in the year 1931 in Springfield, Ohio. We were incorporated in the state of California in 1958, and we presently hold classes in the United States, Canada, and certain other countries. Our Ithaca branch was established in 1979. Now, in this school, we use the true, correct, and original name and title of the Father, the Word or Son, and the Holy Spirit, which are contained in the original Hebrew text. The true name of the Heavenly Father is Yahweh. It has been improperly substituted by Lord. The true title of the Word or Son is Elohim. It has been improperly substituted by God. And the name of the Holy Spirit manifest in or out of a physical body is Yahshua. It has been erroneously substituted by Jesus Christ. Now, Lord and God are titles and not names. The Apostle Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, tells us in 1 Corinthians 8:5 that there are Lords many and gods many. But we now know that each Lord must have a name, and each God must have a name also. Elohim is a title, but unlike Lord and God, Elohim is a divine title. That means that Elohim is the title our Creator chose for himself. Now, Jesus is a name, but it is an erroneous name. A minor investigation on your part in a good dictionary or encyclopedia would prove that neither the Hebrew language, the Greek language, nor the Latin language have any characters or letters in their alphabet that would produce the sound that is made by this letter J. Neither was there a letter J in our own English language until some 1,400 years after the Messiah's death. Therefore, such names as Jesus and Jehovah are impossible renderings of the true and original name of our Father and his Son. Christ is a title, just like Lord and God. Now, Yahweh is pure spirit. And in this pure spirit state, he is incomprehensible and inscrutable. He is the ultimate source, substance, limits, and bounds of everything. We have Yahweh in his pure spirit state symbolized on this chart as a cloud. Yahweh is not a cloud. He merely chose a cloud to symbolize himself because a cloud has no particular or descriptive shape and form. Now, we've drawn this cloud all around the edges of the chart, and everything on the chart abides within the cloud. In like manner, everything in the universe abides within the pure spirit state of Yahweh. Now, Yahweh, knowing that man could not perceive of him in this pure spirit state, took on shape and took on form right within himself as Elohim. This is the Word or Son, a super incorporeal being that is having the shape and the form of a man, but without flesh and blood. Now excuse me.
This form can only be seen.
Yeah. Thank you. This form could only be seen in divine visions and understood in divine revelations. Later on, this self-same spirit manifest himself in a physical body and walked the earth plane as Yahshua the Messiah, whom the world calls Jesus Christ. Now there is only one name given unto salvation, and we must know that name. So the simple yet intelligent question that we should ask ourselves is, what was the name of the Savior during the time he walked the earth plane? Now, a further understanding of these names and titles may be had by reading the preface of the Holy Name Bible. Now, also in this school, we teach by the divine Tabernacle Pattern. It is a divine pattern because it is Yahweh's pattern. Now, after Yahweh led the children of Israel out of Egypt, he called Moses atop Mount Sinai and showed him the tabernacle pattern in a vision. Yahweh instructed Moses to build one exactly like it in the wilderness of Sinai. The pattern consists of a most holy place, a holy place, and a court round about. These three compartments make up the one tabernacle pattern. Now we go about in this school to show proof how that everything in the universe is made and operates according to the structure and function of this threefold tabernacle pattern, and that absolutely nothing escapes the pattern. Now we do have primary constitutional aims and objectives, and they are as follows. 1, to help you find and know Yahweh, our Elohim, as he really is and actually exists. 2 is to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity in Yahshua the Messiah, without the distinction of race, nationality, creed, sex, caste, or color. 3rd is to investigate the unexplained spirit law, or the so-called law of nature, and the powers latent in man. 4 is to encourage and promote the study of the scriptures, comparative religions, psychology, philosophy, and modern, both practical and occult science. 5 is to extirpate current superstition and skepticism and ignorance. 6 is to learn, know, and understand the operation of Yahweh's eternal purpose through the dispensations and ages. 7 is to discern and avoid being deceived by Lucifer, the serpent, the dragon, the devil, or Satan and his demons operating the mystery of iniquity on earth through the dispensations of time. 8 is to earnestly contend for the common salvation and faith which was once delivered unto the sons or children of Yahweh. 9 is to make known that Yahweh from the beginning ordained, there is no other name given among men whereby man can be saved, saving the name of Yahshua the Messiah. And 10 is to inherit eternal life now in the kingdom of Yahshua the Messiah, with the hope of immortal glorification in the new earth state. Our watchword is peace, and our slogan is speak the truth. Thank you, Greg, for doing such a good job on the charts. This time, I'd like to have the class dedicated with a prayer, and I'd like to ask Rochelle to do that for us. Our scripture reading is Romans 1:19 and 20. Who was going to do that? Somebody want? Okay.
Who's reading the scripture?
Yeah. We don't want her to do everything. Why don't we have Scott Miller do the prayer?
Okay. Good morning. Good evening. I'm not used to being up in the morning. I work nights. So this is strange for me, so I apologize. Let's all take a moment and bow our hearts and our minds and get into our own personal tabernacles and just try to get the cares of the world, of how nice of a day it is out, what's going on around us, and ask Yahshua to help us focus on today's lecture and ask that he reveal something that we haven't known before, and that we can take that and go out and have it fortify our souls, but yet able to go out and preach the gospel to the world. And let's get this creation behind us and move on. I'm ready. So with that, let's just say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I'll be reading Romans, the first chapter from the Holy Name Bible, containing the Holy Name version of the Old and the New Testament, critically compared with ancient authorities in various manuscripts, revised by the late A.B. Trainer. This is Romans, the first chapter. Saul, a servant of Yahshua the Messiah, called to be an apostle, separated unto the glad tidings of Yahweh, which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his son Yahshua the Messiah, our Savior, who was made of the seed of David according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of Yahweh with power according to the Spirit of holiness, by the resurrection from the dead, by whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for his name, among whom ye also are called of Yahshua the Messiah, to all that be in Rome, beloved of Yahweh, called to be saints. Grace to you and peace from Yahweh our Father and Yahshua the Messiah. First, I thank my Elohim through Yahshua the Messiah for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For Yahweh is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the glad tidings of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers, making requests if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of Yahweh to come unto you. For I long to see you, that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established. That is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. Now I would not have you ignorant, brethren, that oftentimes I purposed to come unto you, but was hindered thereto, that I might have sought fruit among you also, even as among other nations. I am a debtor both to the Greek and to the other nations, both to the wise and to the unwise. So as much as is in me, I am ready to preach the glad tidings to you that I roam also. For I am not ashamed of the glad tidings of the Messiah, for it is the power of Yahweh unto salvation, to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of Yahweh revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of Yahweh shall be revealed from heaven against all impiety and unrighteousness of men who hold their truth in unrighteousness. Because that which may be known of Yahweh is manifested in them, for Yahweh has shown it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and supernal nature, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew Yahweh, they glorified him not as Elohim, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible Elohim unto an image made like corruptible man, and to the birds and the four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore Yahweh also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of Yahweh into a lie, and worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator, who was blessed forever. For this cause Yahweh gave them up with vile affections, for even their own women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burn in their lust one towards another, men with men, doing that which is indecent, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was proper. And even as they did not like to retain Yahweh in their knowledge, Yahweh gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do the things which are not proper. being filled with unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, I don't know that word, and whispering, backbiters, haters of Yahweh, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of all evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of Yahweh, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but consent with them that do them. That was Romans, the first chapter.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'd like to offer the floor to Don Dorner.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. It's been a long time that I've seen quite a few of you, and I know there's some here today that I have never met before, and kind of introduce myself to you. I'm what you call what you call an elder of the school. I came in this class in 1960 to 61, around that period of time. I don't remember exactly, but I recall coming into school and meeting for the first time Dr. Kenley, and by doing so, I had the opportunity to be around him for a short period of time, about 3.5 years before I went to the military. But let me share with you at the beginning. By having the opportunity of meeting him, there was an incident that happened to me and a friend of mine called Jim Dagley, who's in class now in Seattle, Washington. And we both came into class at the same time. We had known each other since the 5th grade, still know each other to this day. And he's a retired veterinarian. I'm a retired architect. And we've gone through many things in our lives. He lost a son, an automobile accident, and he's ended up going to the leaf of the school in California. We had many discussions over the phone with each other about the teaching. I'm really sorry to hear that he's gone in the direction he has, but that's the purpose of the Father, allowing us to come in, and not necessarily that you're going to be saved just because you come into class. There's many called, but very few chosen, as we've heard about in the past. And we're just fortunate, all of us here today, that he has selected us to be out of the world and come into class and had the opportunity to listen to somebody. And we have to realize, and this is a big mistake that's happened in our schools, that when one says that they had received the word of understanding of Yahweh and his son Yahshua, it had to come through a vessel. And that vessel had to be sent to that location, whether it was a teacher or a prophet or whatever, came to these locations to teach and to preach this heavenly vision and revelation to us. And we should never forget, we don't want to look at the flesh, but we want to look at what came out of that vessel. It was able to express those things to us to draw our interest into the school, and that we might be able to get a handle on things and get it in a right perspective of what we thought we knew, which we didn't, and how the outcome would come about to us being here today talking with one another. Well, as I said, when I first came into class, Jim and me were talking about this religion or a religion of some sort, because we didn't know what it was at the time. And we were in my front yard of my house and in Los Angeles, California. And we were discussing religion. And Jim looked over to me and he says, you know, I wonder how far. We looked up in the sky in California at night, that you can see the stars beautifully at night. And we looked up in the sky and looked around and saw all these the beautiful sight in heaven. And we looked up there and said, I wonder how far God is up there in heaven. And then where he lives, and the golden city with the golden streets and paved gold and all that good stuff. And we talked about it. All of a sudden, we were looking at this one star. Both of us were. It was a right one. And all of a sudden, this star came out of the sky and started coming towards us.
Wow.
And as it came towards us, we got scared and scared. And we were in our 19, 20 years old at the time. And it just scared us so much, we ran into the house. And we thought, oh, you know, it's going to hit the house like a meteorite. But we ran in there, shaken, yelled or called my folks and said, look, there's something happening, you know, and nothing happened, but just this light shined the whole house. And then it disappeared. And what I did was go over to my old Bible that my grandmother gave me and opened it up and put my finger in it. And it was John 3:16 that I picked out. And we read that verse. Could somebody pick that up for me, please?
This is John 3:16. For
Right.
Yahweh so, John 3:16, right? For Yahweh so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
Yes, that was the verse that I put my finger on. Of all the verses in the Bible, I didn't know what Genesis from Revelations, but I just opened the book and put my finger in it, and that was a verse that I picked. And I showed that to Jim, and we both calmed down. And all of a sudden, we decided, you know, we need to look more and find out something more about our Creator. Well, the next day, I was going to college at the time in Los Angeles, and I worked after college, and I went to work, and I worked in this furniture store. And as I was working in the store, we got a new gentleman that came in the building. His name was Burbank Mitchell. And
Wow.
he started working in the building that day. And that next day after that, I saw him talking to one of the other fellows that was working with us. And I overheard the conversation because I was really curious of what they were talking. And he was talking about this divine vision of revelation that he had been learning from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Henry C. Kinley. And so I thought, wow, man, we were just talking about that the other day. So maybe this is something interesting. So I asked Mitch if I could talk to him about this. But I told him to talk to this fellow for about a half an hour and didn't want to get us fired from the job. And I said, why don't we get together tomorrow after work and you can tell me more about it. So he did. And he invited me to the class. And that's when I first went to class. And I told Jim that I think I found something, but I wasn't too sure. But I was going to check it out. So I went in town after work again and went to the class. It was in the worst neighborhood in Los Angeles. And when I walked in the building, there was nothing but black people in there. There was just a few white people, and I didn't know what I was getting myself involved with. But Mitch said, you know, come on to the class and sit down. And he introduced me to Dr. Kinley. And I heard the first lecture from Dr. Kinley that night. I left that night, went back to um, West Covina where I lived, and I told Jim there, I said, I think I found the answer that we've been looking for. I said, why don't you come to class with me next time and we'll talk more about it. So I told my folks about it. They weren't too happy about us going into town, a bunch of black people. And although we never had problems or racial problems or anything like that at home or at around us, but it was just a neighborhood that was pretty bad. It was known for being pretty bad. So Jim went back with me the next time, and we listened to Dr. Harrison, Dr. Gross, Dr. Kinley, and we were really impressed with what they had to say. And so we started to continue to go to class. And so I said to Jim, well, we're really starting to learn something about this. Now, Dr. Kinley at the time was teaching the Lord God, Jesus Christ. Now, you understand, we weren't talking Yahweh, Yahshua, Yahweh Elohim, or Yahshua. We didn't even mention it at that time. And this was early 1960. And so we went to class. He was teaching us about the pattern. He was teaching about water baptism. He was teaching us about Lord's Suppers and tithing and all of the things that you've all learned in your classes. And the emphasis was that it was just different from anything that you'd ever heard before. So as the one class we got out of, it was late at night, we're walking towards our car. We were just right behind Dr. Kinley, Jim and me were, and he was going to get in the car with Roger Jackson, who was a member of the class at that time, which just passed away not too long ago. And he was his driver. And Dr. Kinley used to sell insurance, and he used to drive to 7 different locations. And he drove all the time and go to class and have lectures and stuff all many years before he came to Los Angeles in 1958. And since he had the vision in 31, he started preaching about 32, 33 after he had the first charts made, which was the elementary chart painted on a bed sheet by Higginbotham. And so what happened was, as we're walking, following him out, he flipped around. He had his overcoat on that night because he had sweat down talking to the class, his hat, and it was cold that night. California gets cold at night. And he flipped around and made a 180-degree turn, looked at us both in the face and says, gentlemen, he says, it's good for you 2 white boys to be down here with me at the end. And he turned around and walked to the car. I looked at Jim, and Jim looked at me, and we said, what did he talk about? What's that all about? We never did understand that until this day. And it hadn't been that long ago that here we're both in class, down here at the end. And he still kept us around, whether we're both going to the same class or going to different classes, but he's got us in here doing his purpose. And here we are going to class, trying to learn as much as we could. Well, about this time, I was just getting out of college, about ready to get out of college the first time. And I told Dr. Kinley that we were going to go to a trip for 3 months, Jim and me were. He was working at that time. And we decided we would go to Europe for 3 months. For whatever reason, we didn't know, but we wanted to go to Europe. So we went to Europe, and I told Dr. Kinley. Dr. Kinley says, are you going to Rome? We said, yes. He says, well, if you're going to Rome, I would like you to do something for me. I said, what's that, Doc? He says, if I want you to go to the Economical Council in Rome with Pope John the 23rd. They're opening the Ecumenical Council up after hundreds of years, and it was a big change in the church at that time. It was a revolutionary change, matter of fact. And he said, I want you to go and be a representative for me in our class. So, okay, Doc, not knowing what I just got through saying, because I said afterwards, I said to Jim, I said, you know, I just committed us to go to this thing and be a witness for him, but I don't even know how we're going to get in the place because we're not a Catholic. And we don't know anything about the religion or nothing. And we're going to Rome to go to this place where there's millions of people. And Doc told us, he said, don't worry, you'll be fine, but you be a witness for us. Well, that it so happened that I was still working at that furniture place with Mitch. We had to deliver a sofa over to the Windsor, not the Windsor, the Dodge home in Beverly Hills. This is the Dodge family lived in. Well, the Cardinal McIntyre had taken over that place, and that's where he lived at. Now, that's a cardinal for all of Los Angeles and the surrounding area, which is a huge area. You can imagine Los Angeles, like 180 miles diameter and circumference. And so we went in there to deliver the furniture. I had a slip of mine on a clipboard to have the person sign off for delivering the furniture. I walked into the place and they checked, the person checked it off. I think it was a butler or one of the people in there, checked it off. And all of a sudden, this gentleman comes walking out of one side of the room as going to the other side. And he was all dressed up, had a big cross on his chest, and he looked like a cardinal. I didn't know who he was. So I just, as he came by me, I said, Cardinal McIntyre. And he didn't do nothing. And so we got a little further, and I yelled a little louder, and I said, Cardinal McIntyre. And he says, he kind of shook, and he stopped, and he turned around and looked at me. He said, what can I help you, my son? I said, oh, maybe you can help me. I says, I would like to go. A friend of mine and myself are going to Europe, and we're going to be in Rome around October the 10th, 1962. And this was around, I think it was around June or maybe May of 62. And he said, well, what can I help you about? And I said, well, we'd like to go to the Ecumenical Council. He looked at me and he started laughing. He says, are you kidding me? I said, no, sir, I'm serious. I would like to go to the Ecumenical Council. I have a friend that would like to go, is going with me. He says, there's no way I can get you there. There's no seats. There's nothing available for you to get in there. Well, there's going to be about 3 or 4 million people in this place at the time, in Rome at that time. So what happened was I begged him to give us something, you know. And he said, would you have a piece of paper? And I said, yeah, I have a slip here that I just had signed for the furniture. He says, is there a blank side of it? And I said, yes, sir. And he turned it over and he started writing something in Latin. To this day, I don't know what he had written. He could have said, if anybody gets a hold of this, shoot these 2 people. I don't care. But anyway, we had this piece of paper, had this Latin on it. And he told me to take it to 3 coins at the fountain in Rome, which is where the College of America was. So there was English-speaking people there. So he said, you take this to a Monsignor there and give this note to him. So as we journeyed over to Europe, did our travel all over, came into Rome around October I think it was about the 6th of 82 or went and told him we got to go over to this place, and we walked over there with 3 coins of fountain. And lo and behold, it was just exactly like he said. And we walked down this long hallway, and there was a man sitting at the end, and I figured this was the Monsignor. And the Monsignor looked at us and kind of smiled at us and took us in. And he said, what can I help you with? And I said, now we were in Levi's and sweatshirts and long hair at that time. I don't have any now, but at that time I had some hair. And I said to him, I would like, my friend and myself would like to get in to see the Ecumenical Council. And he started laughing at us. He said, are you Roman Catholic? I said, no, sir. He said, no, there's no way you're going to get in there. He says, all the tickets are out. They're all taken. There's no room. All the dignitaries are coming from all over the world. He said, there's just no way you're going to get in. I said, well, if there's a possibility you could get us in. He said, there's no way. I said, well, I have a letter here. He said, where'd you get the letter? I said, well, it's not really a letter. It's a piece of paper with some writing on it. Would you take it and read it? He says, well, who's it from? I said, from Cardinal McIntyre. He said, you know Cardinal McIntyre? I said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Never known the man before, but I said he was a good friend of mine. And he said, okay, I'll take this piece of paper and read it. And so he read it. He said, thought about it. And he said, stop laughing. And he said, come back here in 3 days. I'll see what I can do for you. So we went down to Naples, south of Rome, came back, and we're there on the 9th of October. I'll never forget that. And as we walk in there, he says, they had these two priests that were on their knees begging him tickets. And they were crying and bawling because they had traveled all from halfway across the world to come to this place and see this event. And he said, I just don't have anything. I don't have anything. They'd been there for a little bit of time, I could tell. And all of a sudden he saw us come walking in. And he says, Mr. Dorner, Mr. Dagley, he says, it's good seeing you again. I see you came back when I told you to. And I said, yes, sir. We're here for whatever you can do for us. And he gets in his desk and he opens his little drawer, pulls out 2 tickets and hands it to us. And I dropped right there. And he says, these 2 tickets you can use and go to the Vatican with. I said, well, I really appreciate this. In our excitement, we forgot to ask him how to get in and where to go. I had tickets, but where do I go with this thing? This place is huge place, the Vatican, and all the property that's on that thing. And so we go back to our pension, which is a hotel like, and that pension and the dining room table, each table had a flag on it from the country that you might be from. You would sit at that table, and this young fella came around, and he started talking to us, and he talked to you in your language, which was amazing. And he must have could speak about 12, 15 different languages because there was different flags on every table. There was a full house. And he'd go over and talk to these people, well, he came around to our table eventually and started talking to Jim and me. And he said to us, how are you enjoying Rome? And I said, I'm really enjoying it. It's great. It's a beautiful place. He said, where have you been? I told him all different countries and stuff we'd already been to and where we were going after we left Rome. And he said, oh, that's great. And then I told him, I said, I have a problem. He said, what's your problem? I said, I have 2 tickets to get into the Ecumenical Council. And the guy looked at me and he turned a shade of white. And he said, you got to be kidding me. You don't have any tickets to the Vatican, do you? And I said, yes, sir. I got 2 tickets here. I said, I'd love to know how to get in this place so I can give these tickets to whoever I was supposed to so I can get in there. He said, I had never seen, let me see this ticket. So I showed it to him. Lo and behold, he says, listen, he says, you be down here at 5:30 in the morning and I take those 2 tickets or I mean, I'll check you having breakfast here at 5:30, and then you take your tickets and you go downstairs, and there'll be a gentleman down there in a taxi, and he'll take you to wherever you want to go. So, or where you got to go. And so we went downstairs, and there was the taxi, had the breakfast. And it's at 5:30 in the morning, still dark outside, and he's driving us to the Vatican. He drives us to the Vatican, and the lights shine on the entrance to this place that we were going, and there was nothing but black and white, all I saw. And I said, look at all those penguins running around all over the place. Jim looked out, and he started laughing. He said, what penguins? The taxi cab driver said, what penguins are you looking at? Well, it was the nuns and the priests, all in their outfits, in their black and white outfits. That's what I was looking at, and I call them penguins. But anyway, so we go up there, and there was a huge line. I mean, there must have been 100 and some people in this one part of it. And it was right on the outside, on the left side of the Vatican as you go inside. And this place could hold about 1.5 million people, this area that we're at. And it was packed. And there was nuns and priests that had been there for maybe a day or two, waiting in line to go inside the Vatican. So we lined up behind these people, and this little soft voice said, when I tell you, you run. That's all it said. When I tell you, you run. So I told Jim, I said, Jim, I just heard a voice. I don't tell you I'm not crazy, but I heard a little voice that said, when I tell you to run, you run. So when I tell you, Jim, let's get going. So all of a sudden, we're waiting in this place. We saw the Swiss guards. We saw all the pomp and glory you can think of. We see the limousines rolling up with all the cardinals and the bishops in them, with the blinds down and all that good stuff. And they're rolling through. The Swiss guards open the gates for them, let them in, and everything. And so they all get into the church. And all of a sudden, there was a loud siren go off, and you saw all these cardinals and bishops piling out of the church because there was a bomb threat at that time. So all of a sudden they go back in, and then we thought, well, maybe we'll get in now. Well, this was about 10 o'clock now. And we were waiting in line like we were doing before. And all of a sudden this voice says, I tell you, you run. So I told Jim, I said, now if I move, you get going with me real quick. So all of a sudden, the Swiss guard goes over to the gate. He starts opening the gate up. And this voice came about and said, go now. And then I said, Jim, let's go. And we ran. And as we were running towards this gate, you won't believe this, but as we were running towards this gate, these nuns and priests and that were falling down. They were tripping over their garments and falling down on the ground. Now this, if you ever remember O.J. Simpson when he had that commercial luggage, when he used to run through the airport and he'd dive over things and run around places and all kinds of, that's exactly what we were doing with these people. And as we go running and had to go around the church, all the way to the gates around the church, which is a big church, and come in through a 3-foot door on the other side to where we had to go to stand, get in, or door to get in where we were going to be standing at. Well, Jim came in number 2, I came in number 3. That's how many people had fallen in front of us. I couldn't believe it. But we had to be close enough that we could hear what was happening to bring a report back to Dr. Kinley in the school. And so here we are, about a stone throw, not even that, where the Pope was at. And the church is like a big cross. And then the entrance to the church had two brass doors. That's where the priest and, the cardinals and bishops had exited when they had the bombs read. That's where they came back in. They were sitting on each side of this entryway, all the way down to where the Pope sits on his throne. And they bring the Pope in while we're standing there. We're on the right side as you come in. The right side of the crossbar, or the crossbar of the cross, is where the right side was the choir, and on the left side was all the dignitaries. This was when Vice President Johnson was there at the time, and we were over on that side. And as we listened to what was going on, here comes the Pope. Big sound of the Pope. We look up on top of the dome, as you call it, in the inside the church. And I didn't know at the time because, like I said, we weren't talking about Yahweh, Elohim, and Yahshua. But later on, I found out the letters that I saw up on the church, on the dome, or must have been 6 foot high, was Yahweh in Hebrew. The letters that were up on that dome. And I didn't recognize it until later what that really was above our head. And of course, they don't practice that. But there it was in the church. And so he comes in on the chair that you see in the book, the archetype, Elohim, the Archetype Original Pattern of the Universe, in the 4th edition. And you'll see that he comes in on this chair. He's got this throne, or this crown on his head, 3-tier crown. And that's the one that's got 666 on it. And he was wearing that, this Pope John now, wearing that crown on that seat, being taken in by these priests, and sat down in front of the statue of David, Peter. And as they were standing as he was statue, then he took all the stuff off of it, took the headpiece off, put a tire on his head, went over and sat down on the throne. Well, like I said, I could see him as he walked over. He had something in his hand. I couldn't make it out at first, but as he sat on his seat, I could tell there was a book, a black book, and I got a book right here. You can hopefully see on the camera. This is the book that I got in 1961 when it first came out, which is God, the Archetype Original Pattern of the Universe.
Oh, I have that book.
And this is one of the original ones that I've carried around the world for many years and had it for many years. And I thought I saw the same book on his lap. And the reason why I say I think it was the same book is he said during this talk, because we had a nun that had been trampled, her headpiece had been stepped on and she was getting a headache, and she mentioned something about she was getting a headache when somebody get off of it. And we heard her say that. We moved aside, Jim and me, and let her get up close to us where she could be relieved. And I said, "Where are you from?" And she says, I said, "You speak English?" Or I said, "Where are you from?" And she says, "I'm from Texas." I said, "What are you doing here for this occasion?" He said, "No, I'm here for a sabbatical from Francis of Assisi." I said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "My friend and me are not Roman Catholics, but we'd like to know what's going on, if you could tell us." So she took the time to write, to tell us, so we could write it on a piece of paper of what exactly was transpiring. And the Pope had mentioned at that time that they were opening the windows of the church and letting fresh air come in. Well, this is the same thing Dr. Kinley mentioned in the book. Now, the book came out in 61. This was 62. So this was foretold before it actually even happened. Now, I say this to you all, that here's a man that I thought was a nice man, okay? Dr. Kinley I'm talking about. He treated me great. He was always nice to me. But he told me, he said, Don, he says, I'm not your savior. He says, I can't heal without permission from the Father. I can't do nothing. He said, I was just given a gift of a divine vision or revelation to share with the people. But he says, I'm not the Savior. I said, okay, and now you can see he got us in that building. There's no way that we could just walk in that building without some help. And we got in there, stayed in there, and listened to that, all that going on in that church. Had things written down so we could take back to the class when we got back to the States and share that with the people. That's what we did. And Dr. Kinley was appreciative of that. Soon afterwards, that happened. I got my notice from the military because I had graduated from college. I got my notice from 1A. That was a draft was still in effect at that time. And I got my notice to go into the military. I had no choice about it. And so I went down, took a coin, 50-cent piece, I remember, flipped it up in the air and said, if it's the heads, it'll be Air Force. If it's the tails, it'll be the Navy. And that's what ended up in Navy. Now, I'm saying all this to say to you that we are all here for a reason. We're truly here for a reason. It's not haphazard that we're gathered together even today. Mm-hmm. And it was asked of me when I first got a call from Bobby to, give this talk to the new people in class, and maybe some of the older ones that might never heard the story. It's not a lecture like you're normally used to of listening to about the teaching. I can do one like a lot of people can. But I wanted to tell you of what happened with this man, because a lot of people don't know what happened with this gentleman called Dr. Kinley and what he went through and what he had to endure from the people. Now, the people, give all credit and all this praise to Dr. Kinley. When I was around him, they weren't giving him praise, folks. A lot of them didn't even believe, even his brothers didn't believe what he had gone through. And they despised him in many respects. He got beat up by the Muslims because he wanted to teach them something about this divine vision. This vision and revelation was historic. Nobody wanted to believe it. He had to fight night and day with this thing. People were ignorant, and many of them are still ignorant. But the fact is that he tried his best for 45 years to preach this gospel to the people and tried to get it across to them of how important it was for their salvation that they listened to what he had to say. But he was despised, he was hated by people that now confess that there was nobody like any better than Dr. Kinley. They're a bunch of hypocrites.
Yes.
And that's what's happened. That's why I'm still around. I know why I'm around. I'm a witness to all these things that happened back there in the early days. They had just come from Cincinnati, Ohio, 1958, moved there, and I happened to be going to school and everything in California in 58 to 62. Now, you know, here it's the right time, the right place. I would have never known this man if it wasn't because I overheard a conversation. Now, with all that said, with all that done of all these years, being in school as long as I have, I went to Dr. Kinley after I received those papers or the notice of military. And he said, Don, he said, I can get you out of the military as a conscientious objector if you want. I said, no, Doc, I don't want that. I want to serve my country because my country's been good to me. I want to go in the military. And he said, Don, he says, no, I could get you out. I said, I understand, Doc, that you can do that. I didn't know that, but I assumed that he could. And because he had gotten other ones out. And so I said, Doc, I'm going to service. And I told him what branch of service I was going to. He says, going in the Navy, I'll be going out in about April or August, I'm sorry, of 63. And therefore I will be leaving the school for a while and serving 4 years in the service. And I'm going to Pensacola, Florida. He said, all right, Don. He said, I'll always be with you. And the man, whatever he said about that, he's always been with me, guaranteed.
Hallelujah.
And so when I went out to Pensacola, Florida, to do my basic training out there, I was there for it started in August. I was out there doing my duty on there, doing the classes, doing the exercising, doing all this stuff. We were under Marine training out there, not Navy. Marines were training us, which was unbelievable. But anyway, make a long story short, I had to do one thing to become commissioned officer in the Navy. And that was pass one part on the engine's exam. Now, folks, I went to college. I graduated from college. I had good grades. I went in the Navy. I was going through the classes. I was passing all my courses except this one course. And I couldn't pass it. And I took that test 7 times. 7 times. I was on my 7th time of taking that course. I was set back in my class of graduating. I sent a letter to my mom and dad and told them I was really, really down. And I told them I thought maybe I'd go AWOL, absent without leave, and just get the hell out of the Navy completely. Well, what transpired was my letter got to my folks. My dad and mother were really uptight. I'm the only child in my family. They got uptight about it, and Dad went over to see Dr. Kinley. And as he went over to see Dr. Kinley, he said to Dr. Kinley, my son, you know Don Dorner? He said, yeah, I know him. He's in the Navy. He said, well, that's my son. He says, I got to tell you that he sent us this letter, and I want you to read it, and maybe you could do something for him. Well, Dr. Kinley wrote a letter to me. I've got this letter with me right now. Some of you already have it. I've gone around 80 classes, so I gave every class one of these papers, but I'll read it to the ones that hadn't heard about it. But this is from Dr. Kinley, November the 6th, 1963. He states, Dear Don, I acknowledge receipt of your last letter dated September 13, 1963. The contents of your letter were carefully scrutinized by me, also read in class and accepted with much enthusiasm and continued interest for your success in your undertaking. However, I do wish to sincerely apologize for the procrastination and delay in answering your letter caused by Mary's failure to type my verbal reply before she and I had to fly back to Ohio. Now, I want you to listen to this letter very carefully because I gave it to each class as I went to visit these different schools. And because I said this letter was not only to me, but to every person in IDMR, because it has a potential for everybody. And you'll notice that he had to fly back to Ohio. And because the reason for our flying to Ohio was the death of my brother-in-law, Bob Cox. He died suddenly while working on his job. We left here on the 25th of September. Notice the dates now. The 25th of September and returned October the 18th. Many that had requested information about you and your welfare, I said that I had not received a reply or heard from you since the previous letter, which I thought that Mary had answered. Your father was at my house Tuesday, October the 5th. Notice the date, October the 5th, 1963. He said he was in Ohio from September the 25th to October the 18th. And here my dad visited him October the 5th for about 3 hours. After he and your mother had received a letter from you. Your parents were very upset because of the things you said in your letter. Having sons of my own, I can appreciate and understand their concern and feelings for you. I enjoy very much the visit I had with your father, and I would sincerely like to see both of your parents more often. As you have learned, Don, we realize that tolerance and patience worketh unto salvation. And as long as the physical manifestation of God remains, or Elohim remains, the vexations and buffeting of our souls by the forces of the Antichrist must be endured with long suffering. We are also encouraged by the scriptures in reading the experience of the patriarchs and the prophets as viewed by the Apostle Paul in Hebrews the 11th chapter. How that by faith Abraham offered up Isaac, etc. And all were tried by the Lord God, operating oftentimes through the negative forces that those patriarchs were found worthy to be counted among the sons of God. Oftentimes we are led to wonder about the daily jots and tittles of our physical existence, as if watching the high frequency vibrations, looking for the spiritual significance, while it is far better to take the obvious lower, slower vibrations and know how God continues to operate his law through the dispensations and ages, knowing that we are created in the likeness of God, the image of God, and knowing still at better, as he said in his law, ye are gods. As God suffered himself to be made manifest in the flesh and endure the vicissitudes or daily life of the uncircumcised, who worked iniquity, likewise, we are making that same trek, whether conscious or unconscious. Knowing this, as was exemplified by the Israelites, the race is not nor for the swift nor for the strong, but he that endureth to the end. I exhort you to look into the situation in which you find yourself, Don, and recognize that it will soon pass, as the stage you are in now, in the proving ground of salvation. Many of us are enduring the like struggle by having to exist from day to day, and our jobs and our responsibilities to the physical are bothersome. Yet we run with patience and know that soon it shall be taken away. And we pray that we shall be found worthy when he has delivered us up unto the Father. Furthermore, do not be discouraged by having failed your exams, Don. I know that you can pass them if you will not accept failure as your lot. You have not failed to be called of God. Oh, man. So therefore, whatever comes, you have won every whit. We are with you constantly in our prayers, and our love for you deeply abounds. Try again and be of good cheer. I will close for now, Don, knowing the next time I hear from you, things will be much brighter, because you will keep your chin up. The whole class sends their best regards and love. Yours in Christ, Dr. Henry C. Kinley. And that was a letter I received. I went to take my 8th exam. I passed it after I received this letter. And after I received this letter, I was to go out on a drill field that day in Pensacola, Florida, on November the 23rd, 1963. As I went out on the field and was practicing our march to graduate, a captain, Marine captain of our barracks, came running out and told us to get our butts inside. He had some news to tell us. We ran inside the building. It was the 3rd floor. There was 3 floors on this building. The top floor was our beds. The 2nd floor was administration. The 3rd floor, or the bottom floor, was where we kept our weapons. As we were having our weapons down in the basement area, he told us, he says, I have some bad news to tell you guys. He says, as we were in tension, he told us to relax. He said, I don't want you at tension because what I'm going to tell you might disturb you. So everybody relaxed. And he turns to us. He says, I hate to tell you this, but the president has just been assassinated. That was John F. Kennedy's assassination that day, at that time. Nobody knew who assassinated the president at that time. Now, as soon as I heard that, the first thing that hit me in my head was what Dr. Kinley had said in class a few times, not just one time, but he said it a few times while I was in class for those 3 years, half year. And he said that Dr. Kinley said that the president, this was 57 or 58, he said this the first time. He said that that a president, a Catholic, will be nominated as president. I'll get the words right. Will be president he will be inaugurated and be president of the United States. He will serve and he will be assassinated in office.
Oh my God.
This was a prediction. And it came true that day with me on that drill field. And I passed out in that barracks. And I was on the second row. There was 3 rows of us. And the guy behind me caught me, laid me down on the concrete floor. Otherwise, I probably would have cracked my head open if I did it. And he laid me down on the floor. And this Marine captain came over the top of me because he was so ticked off at me for thinking I locked my knees, not knowing what really transpired. And he was yelling and screaming and cussing at me, everything you could say. And then he got over the top of me. He was doing like push-ups over the top of me. I woke up about that time. And he looked up and I could see his eyes just looking right at me. And he says, I see you finally woke up. He said, what the hell were you doing on the floor? He says, I said, you wouldn't know what I know. Or I can't right now tell you what I know. He said, what don't you know? What do you know, rather? I said, well, I know that the president was going to be assassinated. And, you know, they locked the whole base down. They had shut everything down all over the United States. Every military base was closed, locked up, because there could have been a war happen right then or whatever, because here you have the president assassinated. They didn't know what was going to go on. Here I'm telling them that I knew about this. Question, they never asked me nothing, even to this day. And just to show you that here we are from what the man said came true. His brother told him what I had gone through. He says, I understand. He says that people are going through a lot out here too in California at the time. I'm in Pensacola. So after I graduated from there in the flight program, then they sent me from the flight program. I broke my leg and they sent me out to Glencoe, Georgia. I was there for a while. And then they sent me to Iceland, for all places, on temporary active duty. And I was flying aircraft up in Iceland and over the horizon radar. And about 9 months. And all of a sudden, there was my skipper, the skipper of the Marine Corps, my 2 best friends up there, were all killed in a helicopter accident. And as they were killed, the orders came directly to me then to get off the island and go and get on a ship. Well, here I go to Norfolk, Virginia, and I end up on a carrier on this landing platform helicopter carrier. It was called the LPH-3 Okinawa. And I served on that for 2 years. And was in Philadelphia, got married to a nurse there, which I'm still married to after almost 54 years now. And when I left there, I came back, after I got out of the service, I left Vietnam because I was over there a year. I left Vietnam, came back to the States, and as I came back to the States in Travis Air Force Base up in San Francisco, I came down to San Diego to pick up my stuff because the ship was coming back, and I left all my stuff on the ship. As I came back to get my stuff, I told my wife, I said, Joyce, I think I'm going to stop by and see Dr. Kinley. I hadn't seen him all these years. So I went to see him that day. And it was just like a rejoicing. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And he came and ran out to me and hugged me. And he said, Don, it's so good to see you. I said, Don, it's sure good to see you too. He said, do you know that we had seminar? I said, no, sir. He said, yeah, we had one in July up there in Springfield, Ohio. I said, no, I didn't know about that. He said, yeah, and I told them at that time that the names had changed. We are no longer using Lord God and Jesus Christ. We're using Yahweh, Elohim, and Yahshua. He said, now you don't use that anymore now, those names. You use those names now. And so I said, okay, sir. And he says, are you going to be here with me? I said, no, I got to go. I've already signed up to go back to school because I've been out for 4 years. And I said, I'm going back to school in Florida. He said, you're going to Florida? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I'll always be with you, Don, no matter where you go. So I ended up coming to Florida. That's how I come back here again. And I see, again, to make this short story, when I came back and went to school in Florida, I was talking to people at that time, and I was talking to them about Yahweh, Elohim, and Yahshua, the different ones that I talked to about religion. And that was before Dr. Mixon came here. Well, in 1975, Dr. Mixon was at a convention in New York City with Burbank Mitchell. It was his last big convention up there. And many of you might have gone to that one. But it was at 1975 that was taking place. And he told Mickey, he says, there's two guys that are packed up and want to go to Florida to do this ministry there. And I told them that to repack their bags, and I sent them back to their jobs and their home here. And I told them that you're going to Florida. He said, go to Florida? I don't want to go to Florida. He said, I'm in Detroit, Michigan. He said, I'm happy right there. He said, no, you're going to Florida. He says, I got some souls down there in Florida, and I got a man down there. And he told him who that person was. That was me. He said, I hope that you can find him down there. He's somewhere down in Florida. Well, in 1980, after 17 years out of class from 63 to 1980, I come to work one day and I go over to the building department in downtown Orlando, and I'm delivering some plans down there for approval. And as I parked my car, there was a meter there, and I put the coins in the meter. I was turned around to look, and lo and behold, this chart that you're looking at right now was on the window, in the window, bold as could be. And I said, oh, there must be somebody from California here to preach his gospel. So I looked at the time, and the time showed that was Wednesdays and Fridays and Sundays. So I said, okay, I'll go to the next class. And I think it was a Tuesday night. So I came early. I sat in the back of the building of the place they'd had class. And I'm looking down, and Dr. Mixon had come there. I didn't know who he was at the time. And he comes up to the back of the building where I was sitting at. He says, I would like for you to come down and get closer to the charts so you can see them better, if you wouldn't mind. And I said, no, sir, I'm fine right where I'm at. So he goes back and sits down, comes back up again and says to me, he says, please come down and sit with me down in the front here, and so you can see the charts. I said, no, I'm fine. So he goes back and sits down again. He comes up the third time. He said, now I insist that you come down and sit in this front row. I said, well, since you insist that I come down there, I said, you know Dr. Kennelly, you're not the Dr. Harris. You know this one, that one, that other. And he was as black as Ace. He was really a black man.
Yes.
Okay, in appearance. And he turned white as a sheet when I said that to, do you know this one and that one, the other? He says, who are you? And I said, my name is Don Dorner. And he said, I've been looking for you. He says, Dr. Kenley told me about you being down here someplace in Florida. I just thought I'd maybe run into you someday. I says, well, here's the day. And then we got together and I kept going to class down here in Florida until he passed away. Now, I've told people I'm not a preacher, okay? I never have been. But I can say one thing for surety. I am a witness to this school, a good witness. And I say that in all sincerity because the things that I've gone through, many people haven't gone through, and they've gone through their own experience. I know that. The Father has taken us through different ways. But all I can say is that I have come through two vessels, one being Dr. Kinley and another vessel being Dr. Mixon. Now, both of them acted the same way, talked the same way, was appreciated the same way, and hated the same way. And nobody can tell me that that man wasn't sent here from Dr. Kinley because he did many things here in Florida that I recognized and I saw for a surety with my own two eyes. I say I'm an apostle because I'm an eyewitness to all the things that have transpired in this school from 1960 for this type of thing happening up to this day. And I'll tell you the reason why I think that it's so important that the Father has kept me around, and Bobby and Pam and a few others know that I have gone through one hell of a situation since 2000. I've gone through 9 different operations. They could have killed, each one of them could have killed me or taken me out. I'm still here. And the doctors at the VA, and that's the other thing. The Father provided the VA for me and given me Agent Orange when I was in Vietnam so that I could have free medical care for the rest of my life and get a salary plus I'm retired, but I get money from the government also to take care of me for the rest of my life. Now, if I would have said to Doc, I'll go with you and stayed in California, I might have been ended up with the crap that they're ended up with out there right now.
Hallelujah.
But he took me from there with no malice, no hatred or anything like that on my part or anything on his part. But he took me out of that environment so that he could set me on this journey out here to what he wanted me to do. And I truly appreciate that he has done that with me. Even though I've gone through all of these sicknesses and all of the health problems that I've gone through, but he's brought me through each and every one of them. And I always recall him telling me, Don, I'll always be with you right to the end. So if I don't see me next time and you hear that I passed away or whatever with these viruses and everything, it's just the fact that the Father I was fortunate enough to meet this one man that you have heard about, and maybe some of you have met him. But it was a great honor to meet him and meet the dean that was sent to him in Florida until he passed away in 2002. Now, we don't have these people around anymore. And we're on our own now. We're on our own 2 feet. Many of you lost Mitch. back east, and I knew Mitch. Mitch taught me much. But I spent 3 days when we went to bandy camp one time. I spent 3 days with Mitch before he died and asked him why he went the direction he went. The only thing he could say is, I taught the people wrong. I said, Mitch, take those words back. You preached this gospel to its simplicity and made many people feel comfortable with this teaching. It's wrong that you should say those words. He said, but I did wrong. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. You taught the truth. I said, you've just been corrupted by the negativity of what's been happening around you right now.
Right.
Shortly died thereafter. I met with him. I had the opportunity when I traveled in 2007 and 8 to 80 different schools. And this is what happened with me, folks. I had a business, a very lucrative business as an architect. I had one of the biggest consulting businesses in the state of Florida. And the father told me to quit, to leave it, put it away. He wanted me to travel. And I traveled to 80 different schools on my own with the help of friends. They went with me to tell the people this story that I just got through telling you.
Mm.
Because what had happened was he told me, I'm saying this is from my father, he told me, I'm going to put the nail in the coffin. And right after that, after me going through all that, is when all hell broke loose in IDMR about Dr. Kinley being our savior and all this kind of crap. And he said, there's going to be some that are not going along with this. There's some that are going to go along with it. And I've said this many times to many people since I've had that experience, that when you think about it very seriously, the only person to wayside or bring about the catastrophe that's happened to IDMR was only one person. That was Dr. Harris. Because Dr. Harris was the only individual that everybody looked upon after Dr. Kinley. In respect, I'm talking about. And they would listen to anything he had to say, thinking he knew the answers like Dr. Kinley did.
Mm-mm.
But we found out he's changed everything. He changed everything before he took the flesh off.
Mm.
And now they treat him as Dr. Kinley, the father,
Mm.
and Dr. Harris as the mother
That's crazy.
of this school. Now, folks, we know that's not true. We only have one father and one mother. That's Yahweh
right.
himself.
Hallelujah.
And that's what we have to look at and appreciate, that he's brought us around to this situation now, that we are able to appreciate where we're standing in, not where the rest of them are standing in. And the majority of them, folks, are standing in losing their soul.
Yep.
And one last thing. Like I said, there was only one man that could do what he did. And the Yahweh had a purpose for him. That's why Dr. Mixon kept saying, don't hate the man. Don't hate the man. Because he's got a purpose himself. And that's what's transpired in your day. That's happened. Now we've lost a lot of the apostles of this teaching because of age, because of sickness and health. We've got another generation that's come up that had never heard anything about what I just talked to you about. there's another generation that has gotten the wrong information about this teaching.
That's right.
Now that's our job now. That's our job to get out here and preach the true gospel of Yahshua the Messiah to the ones that hadn't heard it. Because there's not many of us left. But there's not supposed to be very many left. There's only a few. If you read and study your Bible, you find out all through the dispensations and ages of time, there's only been a few people saved.
That's right.
There hasn't been a whole bunch. If you're in the whole bunch, you better look out. Because he's not going to save a whole bunch. But that was the only way that the people could believe somebody and all fall in the ditch together. It's just like when Moses took the children of Israel and put them in the wilderness of Sinai. And they bellyached all the time, as you know. They were dissatisfied, even though they went through this divine thing that happened to them through the Red Sea, without any of them drowning. And saw Pharaoh and his host drowned in the sea. Their bodies washed up on the shore. And yet they complained. And they thought that there should be a God that they should worship. So they worshiped the golden calf. But see, that's the thing that this school has done, is the worship in golden calf. Notice that the world now is tearing down all those statues. Very interesting. Tearing all the statues down. Well, Dr. Harris is a statue.
Yes.
Dr. Kinley's a statue. Dr. Mixon's a statue. You got to tear all them down. They're flesh and blood. They're natural. That's why I had Romans 1:19 and 20 read. Because you take the natural to understand the spiritual.
That's right.
Dr. Kinley, after he has divine vision and revelation, he says, you didn't know me before 1931, you didn't know who I was. Period. Well, that should be all of us. If you didn't know me before 1960, you didn't know me.
That's right.
The same with all of you when you came in.
Hallelujah.
And that, you know, when you think about that, and you say, well, I got this problem, I got that problem. That's why I had that letter read to you too. You think you've got a problem? We all got problems, folks.
That's right.
We're all natural, physical human beings.
Yes.
And we're going through a stage in our life that sometimes we can't hardly handle. And a lot of people commit suicide over it. All these people right now being locked up in their houses are killing themselves because they can't cope with it, or drinking themselves silly, or taking drugs or whatever to kill themselves. And that's exactly what, you know, they've lost it. They've lost it completely. The hatred and the bitterness that's raging right now is no different than it was way back when.
Right, the days of Noah.
So we know the end's coming, and many people have talked about this this virus and showing the death of it right in April. The biggest high point of this virus was in April, around the 10th, or the, you know, and or the 14th. I'm sorry, around the 14th, and it just goes right back to it's an overturn. All this stuff is nothing but an overturn. Dr. Kennedy kept expressing that over and over and over. If you only realize what was going on and you could catch on to what's transpiring, all it is an overturn. What you're going through is just nothing but an overturn. For me, it's just nothing but an overturn. But we got to catch on with that overturn. And hopefully he'll carry us on through. Because he's the only one that can. I can't
That's
help
right.
you. You can't help yourself.
No.
Nobody's going to help you. It's only going to be Yahshua. And that's why we have to fall back on him.
That's right.
Now, I was telling Bobby not too long ago when I'll wrap this thing up. I asked Bobby the question. I says, what is, and I'll ask you all the same thing. What is a glorified body? Anybody know? We talk about it. That's what we're looking for. What is a glorified body? Now, this just happened to me recently, and I told Bob White this and Pam that this was a revolution to me, and I haven't had anybody say that they disagree with me, but maybe you might disagree with me. But what it was shown to me not too long ago, that the glorified body, if it's a round trip, and we've heard this so many times, if this thing is truly a round trip, you started from pure spirit, came down in the flesh, you're going back into the spirit again.
Right.
Either righteous or unrighteous, okay? Because the spirit you can't kill. So what's transpiring is you're either going to go back in damnation, which means you're not going to have that glorified body. And what is that glorified body?
Yahshua.
Yeah, that's right. But it's more than just saying the word Yahshua. Because not only are we going back into Yahshua, but once we receive Yahshua as our salvation, we are taking on the characteristics of Yahshua.
Hallelujah.
In other words, we're taking on the attributes that was given to him by his Father, Yahweh, which is Yahweh. Now, when you look at that chart, the elementary chart, you go back and you look at that thing again real closely, and you see Moses on top of Mount Sinai. Go back to the other chart, the first one you just had, that one. You see Moses up there in
Yes.
the mountain? He's laying down, right? In other words, he's laying his body down, and then he's having a panoramic vision, right? Then you go over to the next one. Now, our chart shows Elohim, not with all the scriptures on it, but we have one that has all the attributes that make up that body. In other words, knowledge, wisdom, intelligence, love, beauty, justice, foundation, power, and strength. That's the attributes that we see. There you go. You got it right there. That's Elohim right there.
Right.
Now, when you receive Yahshua, you receive those attributes. That's him.
That's so pretty.
Now, it says where is that over there in 1 Corinthians? I think it's 15th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Can somebody pick that up? Where it
1
says,
Corinthians 15 and what? I show you a change. We shall all not sleep. That's 51.
Yeah, go ahead.
First Corinthians 15 and 51. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump.
Right. Now, not only that, but it's talking about we go back into Yahshua, right? We go into Yahshua, who's our Savior. Then we go back into Elohim after Yahshua's mission has been completed. We go back into Elohim. Then we go back into Yahweh, who's all in all. That makes him all in all. Where is that at?
It's the 27th verse, Don.
Okay, read it for me, Bobby.
What is it?
1 Corinthians 15, start at 26.
Okay.
This is 1 Corinthians 15 and 26. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. For
Right.
he had put all things under his feet. But when he said all things are put under him, it is manifested that he is excluded, which did put all things under him. And when all things shall be subdued unto him, then shall the Son also himself be subject unto him that put all things under him, that Yahweh may be all in all.
That's right. So it's going from Yahshua to Elohim back into Yahweh.
Beautiful.
Right where it came from to begin with. As you see on the chart. It's showing you right on the chart.
Mhm.
And that's the glorified body right there. Then you're going back into the Father. Now, it didn't take all of Yahweh to form that body either.
That's right.
So it didn't take all of Yahweh to form you either.
That's right.
But I just thought that was beautiful when I started to see that, because then you go back into the kingdom and you see the intelligence, knowledge, beauty, love, beauty, justice, foundation, power, and strength. Those are his attributes. And that's Yahweh.
Mhm.
That makes up Yahweh.
Mhm.
And he took on shape and form with those principal things. And Dr. Mixon did what they call a 7-minute tape. I don't know if any of you saw that. But he's showing Adam when he was created. And showed the attributes forming the physical body of Adam in that 7-minute tape. And they took on the head region, the chest region, the abdominal region. And then the man breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, which meant he got in him. Yahshua got in him.
Yes.
And he became a living soul. It's pretty, folks. And with those few words, I'd like to say hallelujah.
Thank you, Don.
Oh my God, I love you.
To wrap up our class this morning, I'd like to introduce Greg Prestis.
Thank you. Good morning or afternoon. Thanks so much, Don. Bob, I know we had a plan, but you want to chime in with anything?
No, you go right ahead.
Now, I should have thought of this, Don, but if anybody had questions, would you be willing to answer questions at this
Sure,
point?
no problem.
I'll see if I can dodge the bullet here. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I'm so overwhelmed right now. I love you so much. This is Rochelle. I've never heard you speak, and this was so unbelievable. Unbelievable. How did you feel after knowing him knowing the truth all these years, and to see this, like the school go from what it's gone to now? I mean, you've expressed so much right now, but you know so much. How do you feel?
Well, you know, I'm really surprised myself, to be honest with you guys. The Father has allowed me to remember a lot of things that, you know, for a person that's almost 80 years old, I have remembered a tremendous amount. The Father's allowed me to remember. And he remembered it's because he implanted it in me. A lot of this stuff that to tell the history of this school and the history of something about our founder. And to tell the people, you know, that if you're hated, you're despised, don't be upset about it.
Right.
Because he was hated and despised himself, and he was the founder of this school. And he told the people I think it was in December of 1975, wasn't it, Bobby, that he mentioned in his last lecture, the last couple of lectures, that there would be people who turn against teaching, and it was going to go downhill. In other words, the shepherd was away and the wolves were going to come in.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's exactly what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was December of 75, the last two lectures that he gave, Don.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Dr. Dorner.
Yes.
My name is Reba, and I met you a long time ago, but I wouldn't imagine you would remember me. That's not important. I would like to have, I think you kind of skipped over the one part when you went to go visit Dr. Mitchell, and you were telling him that he taught the thing right, and then he said that he didn't. Was there anything else that you left out that I would like to hear?
Well, the only thing I could say a little bit more about it is that he didn't really want to talk about it very much
I'm
more
sure.
after that. Okay. And the same thing happened with me with Roger Jackson. I had the opportunity to go out to California with one of the other brothers, Dr. Penniman. And we went to 12 different schools out in California. And we
Oh, Dr. Patton from Akron.
Henry Penniman from Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And we went to the hospital where Roger Jackson was. And another gentleman was going to come and arrive. His name was Adam. He was a president or the dean of the state of the School of California, Los Angeles. And
January.
I told Henry to keep him out of the room when I talked to Roger. And I went in to talk to Roger, and I said, Roger, can you hear me? And he nodded to me that he understood who I was.
Yes.
And I said to him, I said, how can you possibly go along with what you knew before this all erupted in this teaching that's coming out in California? And he looked at me. He didn't say anything. He couldn't really speak. He just winked or, shook his hand. I said, you know it's wrong. You absolutely know it's wrong. You've been taught better than that. And the first thing I could see was tears running down his cheek. Because he knew before he took the flesh off that he was wrong. I know, because I could just tell by his reaction after I started talking to him about it. Mitch knew too that he was wrong. But he was convinced in his own mind that no, he wasn't wrong. But then when I talked with him, he certainly didn't act the same after I left.
How so?
He took something from me to understand that he did right and he wasn't wrong and he wasn't a failure. Because that was the main thing, was that I told him, you're not a failure.
No, of course not. We are all we all were raised up with the foundation we have from that man.
That's right. That's right. And I remember when Dr. Mixon said that when he went back to help Mitch, when he didn't have anybody back there, because Mitch went back because of his mother got sick, okay, if you recall.
Yes.
And he went back there to take care of her. And as he was taking care of her, he was trying to set up schools. And he couldn't set up a school out there. He was really upset. And he asked Dr. Mixon if he'd help him from Detroit to help him set up schools. So Doc said, yeah, I'll help you. Whatever you need, I'll help you. And he went over there to Mitch and he listened to one of the lectures of Mitch. And he said to Mitch, I'll never forget this. He said, Mitch, he says, I loved what you said to the people, but one thing I disagree with what you're doing. You're basically telling them that you had the vision and revelation. You didn't share with them where you got it from, which he didn't at that time.
Yes,
he said,
I remember.
I don't ever want to come to class and hear you not mention Dr. Kimmel.
Mm-hmm.
that had the vision and revelation before you came into class.
Hmm.
So that stopped after that.
He didn't take credit for that. It just wasn't stated. There was no
No,
moderation.
no, that's right. That's right. But boy, the doc said to him, Dr. Nixon said to him, "You looks like you're taking the credit for it."
Right.
Not that he was doing that, but he says it sounds like you're taking the credit for it. That you had the divine vision and revelation,
Right.
and not Dr. Kinley.
Well, I went out in 73 to meet Dr. Kinley,
Uh-huh.
and there was no moderation at that time. And I had only been coming to the school for a short while.
Uh-huh.
And when I met him, and then because all of a sudden people are telling me that I'm going to meet Dr. Kinley, I go, well, who's this Dr. Kinley?
Right.
He said, well, he's the man that had the vision. And that's God in a body. And I went, oh, well, I was so taken with the tabernacle. And I thought if he's the one that gave it to us, I should probably have a conversation with him.
Sure.
But all the way across country, I was singing a little song in the back seat of a old Charger with David Oyster and David Rose that I'm going to meet God. And when I first met him, he said, come on in here and give the old man a kiss, the one you've been hearing so much about. And I thought in my head right then, I said, but I just started hearing about you. Little did I know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying.
It
Yeah,
just went right over my head at that time, but I appreciate the time I got to spend with him.
Well, he really didn't want to be, uh, taken as some kind of a symbol. He
I
just
know.
said, "I'm just like you guys are." He said, "The difference between you and me is that I know something about Yahweh, you don't, or God at that time."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "There's no difference between you and me. I drink and I drink booze too. I smoke cigarettes. He's the one that taught me how to smoke cigarettes, for crying out loud."
Just like Willa Mae used to say, how come y'all go on about Cliff? He ain't nothing but a poker playing, liquor drinking, going on and on about him. You know how she done.
Well, there was a time, to be honest with all of you, there was a time that school was out of control, IDMR. That's before Dr. Kinley left Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay?
Right.
And he had to clamp down on all of them when they came to California. He took them in and he had, I think, 3 meetings with them. And he chewed them out. And he says, listen, we're in the cesspool of religion out here in California. He says, I want you to go back to your wives. I want you to go back to your husbands. Because they were swapping back then.
Uh-huh.
Think about this now. And he says, I'm not going to put up with this crap no more.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you're ambassadors for this teaching.
Right.
You don't do these kind of things. You might act like that out in the world, but you're not going to act like that under this teaching. And he put his foot down. And they claimed their act up just before I came into class. But they were having some bad times back there.
Well, there's a lot of bad going on in LA, right?
It always has been, but it just manifests itself more so at different times.
Right.
That way. And it just so happens that they couldn't handle it, and he had to put his foot down on it. But even when he passed away, Dr. Kinley did. This was only information that was given to me by Dr. Mixon. Dr. Mixon used to take care of him a lot when he was ill or at the last. And he would be crying when he would go up and sing. And Dr. Kinley says, I don't understand. I don't understand. And Doc would say, well, what's wrong, Dr. Kinley? And he says, where are the people? Where are the people? They haven't come around to see me. They haven't talked to me. They just let me lie here and die. They were going to put him in a nursing home.
Oh my gosh.
And Dr. Kinley and some of the main men, international board, said, "No, you're not. We'll take care of you right up to the."
Mary wouldn't allow that.
No, she wouldn't.
No. Just as
So-
much as right before she passed away, Mary, I was out in California a lot, sitting at the hospital with her all day, you know, waiting for the doctors to come in and giving the reports on, you know, what they had to say about her conditions and whatnot. And Dr. Harris said at her eulogy that he was up there visiting her all the time. I sat with her for more than 3 months, and I was there from morning to night, and that was another lie that he said. He did not come there to visit her.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Not while I was there.
But you know, the thing is that people, as the old saying is, you can count all the people on one hand that you can count. One hand, if you're lucky. That's now. That was then. There's not very many friends or close people that you can count on. There's a lot of people just out for themselves. You see that in politics. But it's
Don?
manifested in this school too.
Don,
Yes.
when you traveled to the 80 schools, mostly with Henry, after you got off the floor, what was the major reaction of the majority of the schools you went to? From your testimony?
Well, the majority didn't like what I had to say, okay? Because they were praising Dr. Kinley. I told them, you don't praise Dr. Kinley.
Right.
He's not your savior. And boy, that just ripped him a new one right there. Because that was the truth.
Mhm.
Hallelujah.
You know, and they didn't like it, Bobby. They just didn't like it. But the rest of it, they enjoyed it. But what was said to me before I took off, he said, "I'm going to put the nail in the coffin," and that's exactly what he did.
Mm.
They heard the truth. They rejected it.
That's right.
They wanted to do their own thing, and they paying for it. They're all going to fall in the ditch. They followed Dr. Harris, so they're going to fall in the ditch with him. But you know, it could be very interesting. Think of it in this respect too, folks. It could be very interesting that the very last second, when Dr. Harris was going to take his last breath, that the Father says, "I forgive you," and let the rest of them fall in the hole.
He did a job. He did a job well done, if that was obviously what he had to do.
Oh yeah.
He was the man for the job.
Like I said, who else could have done that job?
Nobody.
Nobody else could have done that job, what he did.
Not even Aaron.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time.
Because they didn't have the respect for Aaron like they did Dr. Harris. That's
Right.
why.
Dr.
We
Gilman,
can-
may I ask one?
We can
One last
continue
question.
this after we close out the class.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that all right, Bob, or do you just want to go longer?
Oh, no, let's close the class out. We can
Okay.
continue. the
I
conversation.
do want to read one paragraph from the transcript that Don mentioned. It's Dr. Kinley's second to last lecture that we have called Chastisement or Erroneous Doctrine, December 3rd, 1975. Reader, I declare unto you the gospel, which I preached unto you. Dr. Kinley, 44 years in my case, and you received it. I preached it and you received it. The reason why you received it is because you can't refute it. Now, I don't care who you are, you can't refute it. You can't dispute it, not with this Bible. And then I want to say something else right here too. Now, it's stupid in you putting up money to send a peace another peace mission overseas to preach an erroneous doctrine over there. Now that's stupid. I wouldn't be asking you to do nothing like that if we couldn't prove the divine authenticity, the unerring accuracy, the absolute infallibility of Yahweh and his eternal purpose. I wouldn't ask you to do that. Now, I don't have to try to defend anything at all. I don't have to do that. I preached to you, I lived it. I performed the miracles that Yahweh gave to be performed among you, and you know it. None of it has ever failed. But it is expedient for you to realize and to recognize that the satanic spirits will rise up among you brethren, I'm talking about, among yourselves. Yes, it's expedient for you to expect that. It's supposed to do that. I am not kicking about that. I just want you to be prepared to reject it because I want you to be saved. And that was page 2 of that transcript. Back to you, Keith.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your testimony, Don. Now let's all go to the last 2 verses in the book of Judah for the doxology. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise Elohim, our Savior, through Yahshua the Messiah, our Sovereign, belong glory and majesty, dominion and power, both before all time, now and ever. Let's all say.
Hallelujah.